All right, I'm up here in Fairplay, South Carolina with a good friend, Kris Griewahn, at his place, Stolled Aircraft, and his home. And I thought it would be a good idea to talk about living with your airplane, because he is doing that here at his home, which you can see in the background, beautiful house, and his airplane. So, Kris, how many times is this your first time living with your airplane, or kind of describe your history of where you've lived with your airplane?
We lived in Sarasota at an airpark, which was kind of a not busy airpark, but more of a residential airpark, and then Live Oak, Florida, in a rural airpark. And then we decided to kind of get out of Dodge and get a private piece of property and have our own piece of heaven. And I've always wanted to be in South Carolina anyways, the base of the mountains, and we decided to find a place up here. And I was lucky enough to find this place and make it into what I wanted. And here we are in a little slice of heaven in Fairplay.
So this is a perfect opportunity because you've been in several places, so you have a good cross-section of, let's say, more of it in the city, kind of a rural, and then now your own place, very rural, kind of on a farm. So what would be maybe describe the differences from being at those three different places, both like the rule book, if you will, of what you can and can't do there, just the community itself, and just, I guess, the lifestyle.
So, we were attracted to that whole lifestyle at first. The community, like-minded people, you think, and that whole, community of aviators. The place in Sarasota, which we thought would be our lifetime home, ended up being a nightmare. It still is. There's lawsuits and all kinds of things going on there. People that you thought would be like-minded turned out to be just terrible people. And then we decided to go more rural to a very 300-acre, very rural kind of place. And it's a beautiful air park, and I would recommend that. If you're going to do an air park, I think that's the best. Real low HOA fees, real nice people. It's small HOA, and there's not a lot of people that want to take everything over, and I think that's the best mix.
So I have a personal interest in this. I have an opportunity right now to possibly buy some acreage in a more or less rural community that the rule book isn't very big. HOA fees aren't very high. At the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, do I want to forget all of that, make up my own rules, design my own runway and everything? And so that's why I'm asking this question, and also give everybody a cross-section of what it's like at different types of communities. So let's say some of the advantages of just the community, both the place in Tampa and then the rural place in Live Oak.
So we had a lot of events and nice things, get-togethers, and there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. So that was very appealing to us. You would have once a month, we'd have get-togethers, and there was a lot of just community stuff that you could do. And of course, you have bigger runways and that kind of functions, which is really nice. The bad things about it is there's always politics, right? I mean, there's just always politics about HOAs, which means there's always a group of guys that want to run things. And when there's a group of guys that want to run things, there's always people that want to take things over. And that just seems to nick in every little air park that we've been a part of. And it just seemed to find its way into that community. And that just... for me, it soured it. It really just soured it. It just made it where it was just not bearable. In Sarasota, when I tell you it was bad, this was 3 or 4 years ago. There is still, to this day, 50 lawsuits going on in that community. People can't sell their homes. And when that kind of corruption gets into an HOA, it never goes away.
And I assume also, if it's in a more developed in the city, that those people are probably used to living in condos and townhomes and used to seeing a rule book this big. And I keep on going back to this rule book because a lot of these HOAs or POAs, property owners associations, do have rule books. And I looked at one community before, and it was like your house had to be the same construction material as your hangar, had to be the same paint color. They had like a landscape review board. I mean, it's like you had to pick what kind of roses. I mean, even to the point, like, we have kids, and you couldn't have like kids' toys out in the yard over an hour or longer than so many hours. It was just like ridiculous. Like, do people actually live here? So I just want to talk about this to see if you guys are interested in moving to Airpark, to be aware. Get the rule book. Like, find the interesting place, but then download the rule book and study it, because there's a rule for everything.
It's funny because it's on a scale, right? So the place we lived in Sarasota, there was 110 homes. And then the place we lived in, Live Oak, there's 300 lots, but there's only 20 full-time residents. So in Sarasota, the same problems existed in the small place that existed in Sarasota, just on a smaller scale. One of the biggest problems that you always find, it was totally funny to me, this is a serious problem that you find in both places, that we had people that moved into these air parks that didn't want to pay their HOA fees or pay for runway improvements and said, I didn't know this was an air park when we moved in, even though it was an air park when they moved in. So it's, you know, it's utterly ridiculous that you find people that want to move into these places but then don't want to pay for the fees. And the funny thing is, like, Sarasota was $1,100 HOA fees, Live Oak was $160 a year for fees, and we still had a guy that says, I didn't know this was an air park and I don't think I should have to pay my $160. You should really find out what those rules are and really look into them, and also go back and look, have they ever had any problems with the HOA? Has the HOA been intact? Has there been any lawsuits? Has anybody ever challenged the HOA? And really look into that HOA and see how strong it is, because that's where you always have problems.
I think it's just a matter of personalities who happens to move into the community, of how personalities mix or match. Let's talk about the positives of not having that and developing your own. First, the positives, and maybe some of the hurdles, because we're sitting right now in the middle of farmland, but you've turned that into an airstrip. What was the challenges? Again, what's the positive things of being here and the challenges of developing your own runway?
Positive is just amazing. You can come out in the morning and you can jump in your plane and you can just go fly whenever you want, which is just amazing. A challenge was, when we found this place, I looked at it, and I have vision where my wife doesn't quite have that vision. So over the years, as we found properties, and I'd say, honey, this is a great property, she'd say, no way, there's no way I'm living there. It'll never, And I say, honey, I can see what it's going to be. She never had that vision. And when I found this place, I looked at it and I said, I think I can make this work. I took, my Google map out and Google Earth, and I measured it. I said, I think I can make a runway out of this. And she's like, there is no way you're going to take off an airplane out here. And I'm like, because there was trees and fences, and it was just terrible. And it was ruddy and hilly. And I looked at it and I said, I can make this work.
But this is also pasture land. Even just pasture land, looking at it, you think it's smooth, but it's not really smooth enough for an airplane. So what did you have to do to initially cut that and then final grade and seed to get to where it is now?
So I did a lot of work myself with my tractor, and then when I thought it was okay, we had some rolling hills on the side that were just, the banks were terrible, and there was, unbeknownst to me, there was a grist mill that used to be out here. So there were some giant boulders in here too that I had no idea. So I ended up meeting a grading guy that became good friends with, and he got his bulldozer out here, and he ended up spending a couple days out here and just cut swaths of land out for me. And he spent 2 good days out here with his guys, and he ended up just moving a ton of dirt.
And I assume there's several different species of grass. What did you consider, and what did you decide ultimately to plant that would make sense for your terrain and stuff like that?
Well, the locals just said, you get rye and you get festus or festual or whatever that grass is. So it grows really quick. If you see that, and I'm lucky enough to have my neighbor here as a horse farmer and a chicken farmer. So he was luckily very nice enough to come over and dump chicken litter all over our fields for me as much as I wanted. So as we did that, he just came over and manured everything and just fertilized for us. So it grew very fast. So
you literally had your neighbors come over and crap on your lawn?
I did, a lot, and it stunk a lot, but it was well worth it. And of course, they said if you put that down, a lot of that's going to grow up in a lot of weeds first, but that'll stabilize it, and then the good grass will grow in after, and that's what we did.
So you've operated this as your own little farm grass strip for some time, and then just recently you had something come about, and you decided to go ahead and register it. How easy or how difficult is it to become an actual registered airport, and is that even necessary typically? Now let me introduce you to our sponsors that make all this possible. Awesome companies like Dynon Avionics, Airtech Coatings, AviNation, and Airworx. Check the description below this video for links to these great companies. And visit our website at experimentalaircraftchannel.com for events, our video library arranged in easy to find playlists on specific topics, affiliate products, aviation merchandise, and so much more. If you like these videos that we are producing weekly, give that like button a click and engage all notifications so you don't miss a single episode.
It's not necessary to do it, and it's really not that hard, but I think we need to get information out to people to make it an easier process. It's not hard to do, but getting the information out there to everybody, I think it would benefit everybody to have that information in a packet or just more accessible, because when you need it, you should have it. Because unbeknownst to me, when electric companies or anybody else wants to come put electric lines on your property, they can basically come in, walk in, and take your property out from under you and just do it without any say whatsoever. So when I decided to do it, we had thought about doing it and putting it on the sectional. And like everybody else, you get busy and say, yeah, I'll do it whenever. Well, when the power company sent me a letter saying they were going to put transmission lines at the other end of my runway, when we already have power lines at the other end of my runway, and it was just going to destroy everything I had built for the last few years, I was in a panic, and we did it really fast. Thank God I have a really good, hardworking wife that can work through paperwork, and she got it done very fast. The nice thing about it is when you get that status done as an airport or as a grass field or as a farm runway, the one thing the FAA will really do for you, if you have that on a sectional, they will not let anybody block your runway.
So what was maybe like your main drive, other than being outside of a community because of the nitpicking of rules, to have your own place? What is your vision ultimately to have your land here? Obviously you're working from home, but what is your vision for that?
Well, it was, the one thing is I wanted to be able to work from home. I mean, I've always kind of worked from home with my air conditioning company and everything else, but we wanted to do the builder assist facility, and I just never wanted anybody to come in and tell me what to do. As far as, some of the HOAs do that, some don't. I mean, the one in Live Oak was a really nice HOA. That place was a great place, rural. It was beautiful. We liked it, but I just wanted my own land. I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do without anybody squawking at us. And that was ideal for us. And then the other thing was I'd been in Florida 30, 35 years, and the heat was just enough for me. It was time to get out of Florida. And I'd always loved South Carolina. And of course, Just Aircraft's right up here in my backyard. And, I do so much work with them. I thought it'd be nice to be up here. So the Smokies are right here. And just having this piece of property we do whatever we want with, was just ideal for us.
Great thing to share here is what resources did you use to find this? I know for as far as Airpark Communities, barnstormers.com, I've found it's under, I think, airport properties or airport land. There's a section off to the side that is utilized quite strongly for people posting aviation communities. As far as non-aviation communities, there's a couple websites I've seen, like landwatch.com. There's actually a section or an option for different hobbies, if you will, like hunting or whatnot. And there's actually an aviation tab, which basically I think is just big acreage, I think is what they classify in that. But what kind of resources did you use to be able to find this property and have enough acreage that, I mean, you fly a Super Stol, so you can land anywhere, but what resources did you use to find this property, or would you use?
I found this, and I found about 7 other properties I was going to find for us to look at on Zillow. That's how I found this. And then I had a friend of mine's wife who works for Clarity Realty up here, Tima Ramsey, Clarity Realty. Give her a little plug because she's great if you ever want to be up in this area. She's one of the best realtors I've ever met, and she'll break her back trying to find you something. But anyways, I found it on Zillow, and we came up and I looked at every one. I tried to find something that would be more suiting for Debbie because she wants to have a really nicer house, and I really looked at every one, tried to make them work. None of them worked. This was the last one I looked at. And I came out and I looked at it, and when I pulled into that driveway right up there, I knew the second I pulled on that I was going to make it work.
All right, so last question, and I'll let you guys go. You can go watch another of our aviation videos if you can. The other big concern, especially going to an area that is not developed for aviation, is neighbors. All right, now I looked into an option of this near my hometown not too many years ago. It was about 40 acres, but it was a long, narrow, rectangular, so it was perfect. In fact, I could have had like a 4,500 strip. It was a tree farm, and I just couldn't make it work with the local people that cut trees down and haul them away, and and have them clear enough so it could be a runway. Long story short, though, I ended up going to the Rural Development Board and a couple other places and asked them, like, look, I'm considering buying this property. Is this allowed? Can I do this? And they actually were excited about it. They liked the idea of it. But there's a few things, like there was a cell phone tower within about a quarter mile. They said I probably should contact them and just to make sure that there wasn't any issues with that. As a just flat-out landowner, yeah, did you go to your neighbors and say, hey, I'm going to buy this property, and I have the intent to fly an airplane off of it every day?
Oddly enough, this property, because of where it is, we actually have no zoning rules out here. So there's no zoning. I could have just came, did whatever I wanted to. Matter of fact, when I built that hangar, I went to pull a permit, and they said, oh, you don't need to have a permit. There's no zoning laws. We don't have anything. Do whatever you want. I'm like, oh, okay. But yes, when I did, I came out here, and I went to all my neighbors. There's only a couple of them around here, but I did go to my neighbors, and I went to them, and I said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. Especially this neighbor over here, because he's also a chicken farmer and a horse farmer, and he had horses all here, and I didn't want to scare his animals. And I said, hey, this is what I want to do. Is this going to bother your animals? And would you mind? And he just looked at me and said, you can do whatever you want, but why are you asking me? And I said, look, this is the South, and I thought this is what neighbors do. And every one of my neighbors appreciated it so much, and they just said, no, hey man, welcome to the neighborhood.
Good tip there. And I think it depends on how much land. I mean, if it was like 100 or a couple hundred acres, it might be a little different because you're more spaced out. But you are at a very kind of a niche community here. How many acres do you have here, by the way?
20.
Okay, so 20 acres. You are a little bit closer with your neighbors, so yeah, it would make sense to be respectful and not necessarily ask permission, but at the same time, you don't want to have somebody be working against you your entire time that you're here.
Correct. Yeah, especially because you're flying. I mean, I can come in and out and stay right over my property if I want, but we fly around and we fly over their house, and we're doing different things, and you don't want them calling on you all the time. Not that anybody could do anything, but it would be a nuisance if they're calling all the time. So you want to keep everybody happy.
I just wanted to take a few minutes here, and if you're considering going into an Airpark community like I am, or purchasing property, maybe this will help you at least think of different avenues here and think what to ask and look for before you dive into it. And I'm still asking the questions, and that's why I'm asking Kris about this, because I believe I'm going to be in aviation for a long time, and part of me does want to just dive into community and be completely immersed into it. Just because we have a similar interest doesn't mean we're necessarily like-minded. I'm sure politics are different. Just something to consider. Community versus your own land. And I hope this helps you out just a little bit. Yes, we finally have EAC official merch available. If you would like to help support our channel to get more people involved in experimental, light sport, and ultralight aviation, check out the links below and the new YouTube merch shelf. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.